Hello, everyone, and welcome. Here are the sports writers from the Salem News, Phil Stacy and Matt Williams, and we're talking North Shore sports here on the weekly podcast. Here we speak on Tuesday evening, and gentlemen, let's begin. I suppose we should look back a bit at last weekend. And Phil, you were at probably one of the better games, it turns out, of the weekend in that St. John's Prep Central Catholic game. Certainly close.
Yeah.
What can you share with us?
Well, it's difficult because you don't want to slight Central Catholic. They played very well with a backup quarterback. Blake Herbert, their Clemson-bound signal caller. I hear rumors he's out for the season. Their coach wouldn't confirm that. He only said he wasn't healthy enough to play Saturday, and he won't be healthy enough to play this week when they play Bill Ricco. Okay, whatever. So Jackson Pereira starts for Central Catholic. They never led, but they battled. They made it a whole lot tougher for St. John's Prep than it should have been. And, it looks like, the score is going to look like the Eagles squeaked it out. And I suppose in reality they did. I mean, it was a field goal at the end of the first half. That was the margin of difference. Grayson Ambrosch picked off a central pass after the Eagles had scored late in the first half. He runs it back to the 15-yard line. They set up to kick the field goal, and Langdon Laws boots the 32-yarder, gives St. John's Prep a 9-point halftime lead, and they hold on to beat them by 2. When you dig a little bit deeper, it was a bit of an emotional week, I think, for St. John's. They had two, I referred to two injuries in the same practice. One where their starting center suffered a broken hip, so everybody had to watch this poor kid get carted off the field. And less than an hour later, a defensive back has some kind of like arm contusion. So that was a tough week. Couple of assistant coaches who were no longer with the program but were being honored Saturday for their years of service stopped by practice. I think that was emotional. I think they knew for the coaches anyway, and maybe some of the older players, they knew they'd be saying a moment of silence for Gene DePlacido, our late great sports correspondent who covered St. John's Prep for probably as long as Willie's been alive, I'm guessing. So there were just a lot of things leading up to the game. I'm not saying they weren't focused. It's the second game of the season. You have to be focused. When the bell rings or the whistle goes off or whatever adage you want to use there, you got to be ready to play. I think they won not playing great football, is what I would say. I think a few days of rest will help, maybe both physically and mentally. I think they should have no problem at all with a young and just not at the same level as them Haverhill team. And then you're going to see them go down to LaSalle, Rhode Island next Saturday, face a pretty good team from down there before they open up their conference schedule. I think they'll right the ship, just a little bit of a bump in the road. I mean, they still have 2 guys rush for over 100 yards. They need work on defense. They need work a little bit on the line, certainly in the secondary, but it's young part of the season.
Yeah, I know it's easy. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask what Phil thought of the receivers. I mean, the line certainly seems pretty good from where I'm sitting. I mean, they ran the ball basically at will, but they didn't seem to be able to pass the ball very well. I mean, was that an issue of protection or if their receivers just not? I mean, the 4 guys really that they lost from last year are pretty much impossible to replace. I mean, was it sort of a protection thing, or did it seem like they weren't able to shake good central coverage there on the outside, or was it a case of, hey, if we're running the ball fine, let's not deviate from that type of thing?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's certainly that latter point you made. I mean, they were running the ball so effectively that they essentially just mixed in the pass as opposed to really open up the passing game. I think another part of it was, if you remember, this was the day we were supposed to get that huge leftover storm from the Hurricane Lee, and there was going to be rain and whatnot. Well, there was none of that, but there was a lot of wind. So I think that may have been part of it too. And to be honest with you, I think Deacon Robillard did not have a great game by his standards. There was some times he was almost trying to aim the ball a little bit instead of just zipping it to his receivers. Now, hey, he did throw a pair of touchdown passes to Dylan Aliberti coming out of the backfield, and both of those were really nice passes. in the flat where Dylan kind of got the ball in space and did his thing. But I think moving forward, Deacon will expect a lot more of himself. It's tough to say, Willie, or to get a read on the receiving core because A, they are replacing so many guys, and B, a lot of these guys are young. I mean, Pearson Scala, who has, I think, 3 catches for 82 yards so far in a couple of games. He's only a sophomore. Mason McSweeney's a senior captain, but he's an end. He's got a touchdown already. Gail Garcia, the fullback, who we're highlighting as part of our Gridiron Gems, underrated guys who played big roles. The fullback, he's caught a touchdown out of the backfield. And you have guys like Gavin Gold and Joseph Eberhard and Merrick Barlow and Ambrose, who I mentioned earlier, who had the interception the other day, and Alex Teresi. There's a lot of young guys looking to step up, and they want to be that guy. Work in progress, let's call it. But when the running game is going, they're going to go to that 85% of the time. However, that's not going to work over the long haul. They're going to have to develop that passing game much more so than I saw on Saturday.
So that's interesting. I was going to ask about Aliberti too, because he's a guy that could probably play receiver if needed.
Oh, yeah.
And they have LaGrassa. So I was curious, so those touchdown passes are coming on, screen passes or wheel routes, kind of sneaking out of the backfield, which is interesting. So they got 4 touchdown passes, none to a wide receiver yet, and 3 of them to backs. So I'm sure that's something they'll be trying to scheme up and do differently. I mean, because with LaGrassa, they could always put Aliberti in the slot, and he's a guy with probably a little bit more height than Cam that can probably do a little bit of damage. And so, maybe you get the 2 of them on the field at the same time and use some motions and things like that, similar to what we're going to see Pingree do with Tank Terrio and Cole, with the funny last name there from Triton. I can't pronounce it. And also Bishop Fenwick has a ton of success doing that with Luke Connolly and Anthony Nichols. So certainly a lot of options there, it seems like, for St. John's with Aliberti and LaGrassa, both, phenomenal multi-tooled athletes out there.
Well, it's funny. I think, as we've known, St. John's has loved the power back, going as far back as Kevin Dwan in the early 90s. I mean, they love having that one guy who can, gain 1,200 yards, 1,500 yards. He'll carry the ball 30 times if they need it. I think this year, at least for what they have right now, Brian St. Pierre likes this 2-back approach that they have. I'm going to go way back for a reference here, and this is my nerdy old-time football knowledge, but the old teams in the 40s from Army, West Point, had Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, Doc Blanchard, and who was the other one there? It was Davis. What's his name? Not Glenn Davis, was it? It was Glenn Davis. Yeah, Glenn Davis, Doc Blanchard. And they were a great 1-2 punch for Army. Or if you remember in the late 80s, the Cleveland Browns had those 2 guys. Was it Mack and Biner? Like 2 real great workhorses out of the backfield. I think that's, maybe the direction that we'll see St. John's go this year. They have more of a bruising type back in LaGrassa, as you mentioned, Willie, a big physical kid who can really pound it between the tackles. And it's not that Aliberti, who's more the speedster, the track kid, he's not afraid of contact. They'll run him between the tackles, but he can get outside on those counters and those jet sweeps and hit the edge, and that's where he does his damage. So it's what's working for them right now. I think while they'll continue to work on the pass game, they're going to pound this run game for all it's worth.
I want to talk to you guys. Over the weekend, we always like to look at scores of teams that might have surprised us a little bit, or teams that have been down over the last few years but are coming back. I want to pull out a few scores, and you guys can pick one among them. I was at the St. Mary's Winthrop game where Winthrop went out on top. I think St. Mary's came back to get 15 straight points to win the game 15-14. For Coach Driscoll of St. Mary's, Sean Driscoll, he gets his 100th career coaching win against his old team. He was very gracious to Winthrop, and I was very impressed with Winthrop in that game. So there's my first point. I think Winthrop is a much better team this year than they were last year. Let me go to Salem. Salem went to Danvers, picked up that 15-7 win. Danvers, I thought, coming off that strong performance against Tewksbury, which is one of those kind of gold standard teams. I'm not saying they're
Danvers
a championship.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're a championship team this year or last year, but they're one of those teams that you look to as a solid program year in and year out. they played them tough, have played them tough in the past. And there's one other game here I wanted to single out. Well, even Lynn English and Lynn Classical. Matt, you were at the Peabody Classical game where it was really within anybody's game at the end of 3 quarters, but Peabody poured it on in the 4th quarter. And then I thought Lynn English actually killed themselves with penalties in the first half against Swampscott. But I think English is a much better team this year than they were last year. So there you go, a couple of teams, and of course Swampscott's Peter Bush got a win, his first win after the opening week tie at Auburn. So there you go. There's a couple of things maybe you guys want to pick on. I know some of those schools are out of the Salem news area, but certainly Salem in what they've done this year is impressive.
Well, Willie, do you want to touch on the Swampscott and Peabody games first, and then maybe I can get into Salem a little bit?
Yeah, the Big Blue, looked like a little bit of a work in progress, but they are going to improve, and I think that they made some timely plays. I do agree with Bill. English looked very much improved from a year ago, and has some good athletes out there. That the penalties, the mistakes, they really were in control of the game until the punt, 55-yard punt by Max Field pinned him at the 1. And Swampscott was able to knock the ball away, and Joe Marino recovered in the end zone for a touchdown for Swampscott to really get him going. And again, up until that point, English was really in control of the game, and Swampscott had a hard time moving the ball offensively. But that'll come, and I'm sure that they'll adjust and continue to improve. And Peabody in Classical was really a heavyweight fight. I came away very impressed with Brian Vaughn, the quarterback. I mean, he's a warrior, just as absolutely tough as they come. Brian Vaughn, the coach, is a really good spread coach, is really good at creating mismatches and finding problems. And, he moves that tremendous athlete, John Naskey, all over the formation and gets him loose. And he caused Peabody a lot of problems early. Peabody had a lot of discipline problems early in the game. I was really impressed with their composure in the 4th quarter, their coaching adjustments. I think that, big picture from 10,000 feet, it shows how much the program has grown. 4 or 5 years ago, that's a game that they lose for sure. They probably come unraveled in the 4th quarter, and they've really, overhauled the culture and the coaching over there, the ability to make adjustments and rein things in and stuff like that. And
they didn't really have a lot of close 4th quarter games last year, did they?
No, I don't think no.
I was running through my head here, and I'm like, Beverly, no. Marblehead, no. I mean, they didn't, Salem, no.
Not that they won. No,
that's what I mean. Like in conference, they didn't have any games where it was, up for grabs, so to speak, in the 4th quarter. I don't think.
No, in fact, the last time they were shut out in a half was week 10 of 2021 against the same Lynn Classical team. Lynn Classical led them 14
non-playoff game, obviously, at that point.
Yeah, they came back and won. And this year, I should say, it was only 8-0, and they were able to come back and win. And what can you say about Eli Batista, a guy who just took over the game in the 4th quarter with 3 4th quarter touchdowns, just uncoverable, ridiculous moves. I mean, if he's not the best player in the North Shore, he's 1A or something like that. I'm not even sure at this stage who else is in the conversation. The guy never comes off the field. He's got 5 touchdowns already, and he plus 2 that have been called back for penalties. It's like he just if you give him any space, he's going to cause you all kinds of problems.
And he's a sprinter, right? In the winter.
Yeah, and very fast, and with a rookie quarterback too. I mean, that's the thing. It's one thing to be wide open when a veteran, all-time quarterback's throwing you the ball. When a brand new sophomore is doing it, and you're still doing the work. I mean, he is just continues to get better and better and take over games. And I'll throw it to Phil here with Salem. I know that this one's for Johnny Robb. I mean, we may not have mentioned Shane Field there by name on the podcast last week, but I'm fairly certain he was one of my guys to be aware of in the crystal ball predictions. I think he was the guy that I singled out for one of those questions.
Well, if you know J Rob, as he's affectionately known, John Robinson, longest tenured Salem High assistant coach, and they've got some great ones over there between Eddie Mercier And I'm seeing all the guys the other day, and I'm trying to think who else is over there. Wrestling coach Willie, help me out. Why am I forgetting his name?
Oh, Cliff Exelon.
Cliff Exelholm. Yes, sorry,
Wonderful guy. Yeah, reigning
Um,
coach of the year for us.
yes, thank you. Matt's got himself surrounded with some really good people. Riley Christie, the athletic director, is on the staff, but John is the longtime coach, and he and I go way back. And I think I've said on this podcast before, I hate it when I come over with my orange water bottle here. My orange bottle.
That's rude.
Orange is not allowed over there, but it's the only
You
water
really
bottle
shouldn't.
we have.
You shouldn't do that, Bill. You
Well,
really shouldn't.
it's not like I do it on purpose. It's the water bottle that I have. They told me
Well,
they
that
buy
makes it.
another one. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Bill, that makes you so insensitive. That you don't even know you're doing.
I actually tried when I was walking onto the field and it like hit me. I was like, oh man. I tried to cover it up with my notebook, and they spotted it right away. They knew right away. But it was the first thing John said to me. He's like, I can't believe you left him out. We've been using that all week to pump him up, to fire him up. And then, Shane tells me the same thing after the game, very, very modest and all. But, he said he used it to fire him up. Hey, you know what? I say that's great. They're great that they're listening, and it's great that they can use it for motivation. Salem really played well. I thought, Bill, as you kind of alluded to in the lead up to this, that Danvers had played the better opponent in week one. Arlington, we don't see, but I'm guessing by the score of that first game that they're not going to be booking hotel rooms at Gillette in December. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? Danvers is going to be hungry for a win. Was I the only one to take Danvers, Willie, or did anybody else in the picks last week?
I believe it was 2-2. I believe. I believe you.
Danvers over Salem. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're looking at one other guy right here.
Yeah, so I took Danvers too. And ton of credit to Salem. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times in the first half, but they were down only 7. They regrouped. They really tightened up defensively. They only allowed Danvers 30 yards rushing all night.
Wow.
And for a team that has Owen Gasanowski in the backfield, that's saying something. Salem got its offense going a little bit. And of course, there's Shane scoring both touchdowns, one on a, kind of just like a sweep around the corner there. He goes for 66 yards. And the other one where he bashes in from 1 yard out after the previous play, taking it 18 yards down the left sideline when he actually hurdled through, like almost like a football goalpost. He jumped through 2 would-be defenders, including Gaskanowski, who was coming up from his spot at cornerback. And I asked him, geez, what made you think do that? He says, well, I saw Gasanowski taking down some of my teammates with low tackles. He was getting low and tripping them up, upending them. So I figured I would just leap right through that attempted tackle. And he did it, and he got down to the 1 and he pushed it in the next play. So yeah, I think Salem is for real. They had a ton of momentum coming off of last year. They really got after it in the offseason, the weight room. These kids have bought in. They feel as though they can beat anybody on their schedule. And that's fantastic. I mean, why shouldn't you feel that way, right? Stern test this week on the road at Greater Lawrence. Greater Lawrence is coming off of they put up 49 points against Hamilton Wenham last weekend, so we know that they can put up some offense. How is that Salem defense going to do against that Greater Lawrence offense? How is Corey Grimes and Devontae Azuna and Quinn Rocco Ryan and Shane Field and Albert Pujols and all these guys going to fare on the road offensively against their defense? Good test for them before they jump back into conference play next week. If Salem can come out of that game 3-0, they're going to be flying even higher than they were this past Friday night with that win over Danvers. And that was a milestone win for them. That was the first win with Danvers in 15 years. I mean,
I think it's a huge win. I think it's just a huge win for the program. We
sometimes forget in the day-to-day whatnot, we meaning, the newspaper and certainly you too, Bill. I mean, we're watching a ton of teams at once. We're not focused on one team. We're watching all these different programs and different sports and whatnot. And sometimes you tend to not forget or look past, but it's like, oh yeah, when it's brought to light. Matt Bouchard, the head coach, had said to me, you know, a lot of our guys have like 25, some of these guys pushing on 30 games of varsity experience.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's right. A lot of these guys played during that COVID year when they were freshmen, and Salem didn't have a whole lot. You know, they were 0-7. They all played as sophomores when they struggled a little bit. They all played last year when they had a winning record, and now they have all this experience. So these guys know what tough times are. They know what it's like to be down at halftime. They know what it's like to take an opponent's best and withstand that pressure and get back after it and do what they need to do to shut them down. So this is a veteran Salem team here, and they're reaping the benefits from the times they got their head kicked in as freshmen and sophomores. Now they're seeing that scoreboard turn the other way in their favor.
You know, and you look, just two things, just on Salem. I mean, when you look at these scores, you look at Danvers the week before against Tewksbury, then you look at Salem against Danvers. I mean, who would have thought that Salem would be competing with a Tewksbury, you know, a year or two ago? Seriously. So that's just a great credit to these guys, these kids, these coaches for what they're formidable, and they're going to
Salem
play
beating a team that played Tewksbury, you mean?
Yeah, well, exactly. But I mean, Danvers lost by a touchdown to Tewksbury. Salem beat Danvers by a touchdown. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
okay,
so you can make
I
this,
gotcha.
the equivalent, you know, Salem and Danvers are very similar. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm going with Danvers and Tewksbury. I'm sorry, Salem and Tewksbury are very similar. If you play the comparison,
I mean, they had the same. I've put on my Bengals hat here. This is the cap that the Salem guys. I'll be sure I won't wear this to their game. I wear this to Beverly games on occasion in humor, and people tend to not like it. So that's why I threw that on. But just to echo what Phil said, I love that the Salem guys are paying attention, that they're watching. I mean, I know that they were watching last week when we said, "Hey, this is a prove it game for you guys." You know. You had a nice record last year, you know, and Danvers blew you out in week 10. And, you know, now you're playing them again and you got a chance to prove that you're for real. And they took that to heart and they went out and did it. So I do think that they're one of the best stories on the North Shore, and they're really just getting started. And, you know, to bring it all full circle to what Bill said about the beginning with St. Mary's, I mean, how loaded does that Division 6 look right now? You've got St. Mary's,
absolutely.
You've got Salem, you've got Winthrop, you've got Linfield is excellent. I mean, that's 4 teams just right here on the North Shore, and I'm sure there's like some really good South Shore teams in that D6 that are pretty dangerous too. So I've got my eyes on that, and to touch on a point that Phil's made on Twitter a couple of times, right now, you got to say that the so-called small, the NEC Lynch, looks like it has an advantage. I mean, Winthrop formidable. Salem looks formidable. Peabody obviously is arguably the best team in the league right now.
Gloucester's 2-0.
Right, Gloucester. That's the one I was looking for too. Gloucester is sort of doing a similar thing to Salem, I think. Maybe not quite as high a level. I don't know that the personnel is quite as advanced, but they've got a lot of guys that had a lot of experience that took some lumps in 2021 and 2022 that are doing some damage, and so they're a great story here as well. So I'm sure
Severino's off to a great start for them. Cameron Whitfeld has looked really good at quarterback. I think that offensive line has really done a nice job, not only protecting him but opening up lanes for those running backs to run through. And they have a third straight home game this week against St. Bernard's, which it looks like a very winnable game. So for Gloucester, which has had some tough times the last few years, if they were to win Friday and then they open on the road next week in conference play at 3-0, think about what a huge boost that is to those players and that coaching staff.
Oh, there's no question. And, you know, I'm sure that some of the teams in the Dun are sitting there muttering under their breath like, oh, yeah, wait till they play our schedule. You know, we'll see what's going on. But you know what? So far, those teams are proving it. You know, Salem first and foremost.
You know, I mean, I was trying to think the other day and I didn't look it up, but when was the last time, Marblehead started a year 0-2? It's got to be close to 15 years, 15 years, I'm guessing. Probably that 2009 Super Bowl team.
I was going to say, I would guess maybe 2010 or maybe 2012 would be my guesses.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, but I mean, it could be all the way back to like 06.
I mean, I think Beverly played better last weekend despite the score. and they're finding out that I think Sean Costa, who's a sophomore, might emerge as kind of like the lead back out of that backfield. He carried the ball, I think, 16 to 17 times last week against North Andover on the road, 70 yards, scored a touchdown. Whereas Brendan McCarron is more the power back. Sean could find himself in the role as the speedy quick back that they have. I think they're improving. They just need to kind of put it all together, but tough week for them to be facing Peabody and look for their first win.
We've actually previewed a bunch of games already this week in our discussion, looking back and forth, but I wanted to do two quick things. One, Salem's game at Greater Lawrence, that's a great program, the Greater Lawrence program.
Reggie's,
so that's
absolutely.
Clearly, as you're talking about, that's a tough game. The other point I wanted to just drop the name of Dominic Scalise, the Peabody place kicker, broke the school record last week, former soccer player in his youth, and he's got that soccer background and broke the team's kicking scoring record. So last Friday night.
I don't think Willie wants to break any news here, but we do have something in the works for a story on Dominic coming out Thursday. Willie, is it?
Well, yeah, you can tease it. It's quite all right. I think
your story. Go right ahead.
I think
we've teased it.
Watch, I think by the time people watch, well, Dom has got quite the story. His people that don't know, his grandfather was Silvio Cella, the Hall of Fame coach of Revere, and his father was great grandfather. His grandfather Mike Cella also coached Revere and was his kicking coach, up until recently. And he also is doing a fundraiser for an organization out of Iowa that's really interesting. And so we're going to have a story about his fundraiser that everybody can read. And, it's called Every Kick Counts and has to do with awareness for pregnancy health. He and his family went through a tragedy when he was in kindergarten. And so he's trying to pay it forward and raise some money. And interestingly enough, he when he went to a kicking camp, he met a kid in Iowa that had been through kind of the same thing and was part of this fundraiser that's based in Iowa, and they didn't have anybody involved in the East Coast. And so, as it turns out, they became really good friends. And he said, "Oh man, I can help this out. What a small world, kind of, full circle kismet type of a situation where it all come together for him." So, just a really nice kid, great family. And, we'll have a story about the fundraiser, and, everybody can check out his fundraising page. I mean, he's already doubled his goal, which is great. And, those are the kinds of stories that, we just love to tell those sorts of stories. And we'd encourage anybody out there that's doing anything like that to let us know, because we love to write about it. I mean, not to speak for you, Phil, and certainly for Nick too, but I mean, it's the tackles are fun, the touchdowns, the trap blocks, that kind of stuff. But we love this kind of heartwarming stuff. I mean, you don't want to lay it on too thick and end up becoming like the ESPN, like the My Wish song that they play all the time for the tearjerkers and stuff, right? But I mean, it's heartwarming, and sports brings people together. And I think that's one of the things that we all love about our jobs, so
editing that story reminded me a little bit of the story of the Melanson brothers from St. John's Prep Hockey a couple of years ago.
Great example.
Yeah, I don't know, Bill, if you would recall that or not, but two twin brothers on the St. John's Prep Hockey team 2 years ago that eventually won the state title. They lost their mom. Their grandparents moved into the kids' house, not vice versa, to take care of them. It was a great story. They were, beloved fans at St. John's Prep hockey games, including Papa Joe, their grandfather. And that was really heartwarming too. But not to take the focus off of Dominic. That was a great story that Willie wrote in and of his own right. And I think people are really going to enjoy it when they come out and hear from the Scalise family and this wonderful endeavor they've taken on.
No, but I mean, just in general, we love the the off the beaten path stuff that people trying to help out. I mean, a lot of times what was it, the little girl in Beverly that everybody, Riley, right?
Riley Rocks, Riley Fessenden.
Things like that. I mean, those are the stories that really stay with you. I mean, it's fun to write about the touchdowns and the senior that scores 3 times that never scored before and that kind of stuff. But this stuff, it comes up all the time around the Boston Marathon, right? People people running for a cause and things of that nature. It's just those are the things that that certainly stick with you over the years, I think, right? I mean, that just is anytime that we can be an outlet, people trust us to tell that kind of story. It certainly means a lot to us. I know that much.
All right, gentlemen, we're down. We're kicking down the last few minutes here. Anything else you guys want to touch on? Any other football or any other sports to share with our listeners here?
Trying to think.
I'm trying to think. Did we touch on the Gloucester field hockey? Was that game completed last time we had a show? It was almost a week ago now.
I think we did. That was the hat trick game, right? You kind of mentioned
That's a
hat
heck of a
tricks.
win for them over Masco.
Yeah, I missed last week's podcast, but I mean they're rolling. They've won 4 in a row. They won 10-0 today.
My memory has failed, but I think we talked about that.
No,
But it's a good point. It's a big game. Yeah.
Lily Cregent had 5 goals for Gloucester today. I mean, they're rolling.
Big today, as you watch this on Wednesday, big volleyball match in the NEC Wednesday night. Peabody and Danvers both unbeaten in league play, playing against each other. So that's a good take. We don't always touch on the volleyball, but two proud programs that always have great matches.
And Lisa must be the dean of NEC volleyball coaches, I would guess, right?
I mean, she's got to be among the deans of the whole shebang, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the great coaches across the state in volleyball, but she's been at it quite some time, right? I mean, she's got to be close to 300 wins, if not over that, and
going up against sleep deprived new father George Lavasser.
Oh, well, wonderful news! I had no idea.
Yeah,
That's
he
great.
and his wife had baby Jameson over the summer, and he tells me he sleeps well. George tells me that the baby does, but I was a new dad once. I know that that's probably a line, but hey, who knows, But no, you're right. That should be a great match tomorrow night. The Salem News will have a photo representation there.
Wonderful
Yes,
news. So the other sports. I mean, I don't want to say the other sports as if to say that they're like less than or something, but we try to keep our eyes on everything and keep track. Certainly, I think the cross country has some invitationals coming up where we'll start getting an idea of kind of who's who. I mean, at this stage, it feels like still some feeling out processes going on.
Danvers is off to a great start. Actually, who is running well this year, and they've been down for a while. The Hamilton Wenham boys. They're actually under Coach Sawyer. Steve Sawyer's got the boys program built back up, and they seem to be really strong this year.
Yeah, interesting. The numbers are just down across the board. Hamilton Wenham struggled with that for a while. I know Gloucester lost its team. Salem has always struggled. Peabody's girls have middle schoolers this year because they only had 2 kids signed up, which is like, I know there was some scoffing about that around the region. It's like, how do you, you guys bring 2 busloads of JV people to the indoor and outdoor meets? You're telling me none of them are distance runners, but I guess that was the case. And they're all playing other fall sports. Field hockey must have its numbers way up or something. So cross country, feeling the squeeze a little bit as far as kids signing up. This generation, they'd rather be on TikTok than out running miles, I guess. I don't know. Not to sound like an old man, but geez.
Well, that's a seismic shift for Peabody cross country because they were the top cross country team for years and had the top athletes over the years in cross country for sure.
It's crazy to think that. Yeah, Gloucester too. I mean, Gloucester's a team that ruled the roost and always had numbers. I mean,
Gloucester had to merge with Manchester Essex this year.
That's what I'm saying. Like that seems like cross country is not not real popular. I don't know why. It's a perfectly fine sport. A lot of fun. Good weather to be running out in once it gets cold. I mean, I certainly enjoy it. So, interesting to see the progression, so to speak. But I think the league is still going to be good, and certainly the realignment at the state level is really helping some of the programs around here. Hurt Marblehead, but it's helping everybody else. So because Marblehead's in Division I, so if they want to win the state title, they'd have to beat the Prep, which I don't foresee happening anytime.
Quickly, too. Speaking of Marblehead, just to come back around to football for a minute. Did you guys hear today that there was some kind of hazing incident involving King Philip? supposedly
yeah.
during the preseason.
Oh God.
And of course, like I don't know if they had like the upperclassmen had the sophomores box each other or something. I don't know, something like that.
Hockey boxing? I thought that was a hockey thing, no?
I don't know.
I have
It
not
got me
heard
to
about this.
thinking, like, wonder if Marblehead gets a forfeit win out of this.
You know, for somebody on those picks with you guys now, that would if they had to forfeit that game against Marblehead, I would not be disappointed at that. Having picked the Magicians a week ago, but Nick and I actually,
on-field results only, Bill. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, we're not going back and that's like what the
On-field
referees.
results only.
That's like when the
You guys are
yeah,
making the
when,
rules up as we speak here.
The
No,
rules have been
it's
in
just
place
like-
for 20 plus years.
just like that what you call disputed the disputed overtime game with Danvers and Masco last year, and they
Oh,
said
jeez.
they said, well, whatever the referees walked off the field was their ruling. It's in the referees discretion. So our picks are in the referees discretion.
This reminds me, Willie, we have a newcomer to the picks this year, and I remember a certain individual who came to work for us one time many moons ago. And, we would have a TV in the office back in the day, and we'd be watching, whatever. And this young man grabs the remote control and just starts flipping around. And I turned to him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm looking for, the Bungalisa German soccer game or whatever." And I said, "Hey, remote, put the clicker down." And to this day, we are still all friends with him, although he no longer works for us. But he is known as Remote.
Well, I thought that Bill's.
Who is this person? Do you want to share
Well,
this?
we don't want to
Just 'cause
shame
he
him on this, 1,000 listener podcast, but
Just
he
because you
knows
wanted
who
to
he
put
is.
a soccer game on, a soccer match on?
You wanted to put,
Well, I don't
Dortmund
blame you.
against
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest or somebody, I don't know.
See, I thought that Bill's kind of lawyering to try to get an advantage of the picks reminded me of a different certain someone that used to be very concerned about such things. Used to
Same
sit in
person who would make calls all over the state and asking,
hey, I do
you
that
got
too.
anything you got anything on Blue Hills?
I do that too. There's nothing wrong with research, but nonetheless.
All right. On that note, we've left everybody totally confused, and that's a great way to leave everybody, right?
That's
so
right.
you got to come back. We'll clean
Yeah.
it all up next week. How about that?
There's one viewer that's not confused, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
No, I hear you.
And we love Remote too. Don't get me wrong, we love Remote. It's a great story.
They're going to switch us off by remote here.